A heavy silence hung over the ranch, thicker than the morning mist that clung to the pastures. For Jim, every sunrise now felt like a countdown. In just a few days he would trade his wide-open spaces for the cold, hard walls of a prison cell. It was all because of a single, terrible mistake, a moment of desperation that led him down a path he never imagined. The weight of his future, or the lack of it, pressed down on him, and the thought of leaving his ranch, his life's work, was a pain sharper than any physical blow. But what truly tore his heart to pieces was the thought of leaving Clyde. Clyde wasn't just a horse. He was a friend, a confidant, a silent witness to Jim's life. He was a magnificent Frisian, with a coat as dark as midnight and a spirit as wild as the winds that swept across the plains. Jim had raised him from a gangly colt, their bond forged through countless hours of training, long rides under the vast sky, and quiet moments in the stable. Clyde knew Jim's moods better than anyone, responding to the slightest shift in his posture, the softest whisper. The thought of another's hands on Clyde's reins, of his friend being sold off to an unknown fate, was unbearable. With only a few days of freedom left, Jim knew what he had to do. He needed one last ride. He walked towards the stable, his boots kicking up dust that seemed to settle on his heavy heart. As he approached, Clyde's head appeared over the stall door, his ears perked, his dark eyes fixed on Jim. He let out a soft nicker, a familiar greeting that sounded like a question. It was as if Clyde sensed the turmoil churning inside him. Jim reached out and stroked the horse's velvety nose. "Hey, old boy," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "How about one more run? Just you and me." He swung the saddle onto Clyde's broad back, his movements slow and deliberate, trying to commit every detail to memory. The smell of leather, the warmth of the horse's coat, the quiet sounds of the stable. Once mounted, they set off. They started at a walk, leaving the familiar ranch buildings behind. But as they reached the open fields, Jim gave Clyde a gentle nudge, and they broke into a canter, then a full gallop. The wind whipped past them, tearing at Jim's clothes, and for a few glorious moments he felt free. The rhythmic thunder of Clyde's hooves on the earth was the only sound, a powerful heartbeat that seemed to drown out the anxious thoughts in his mind. They rode for miles across golden fields and through whispering groves of trees, chasing the horizon as if they could outrun the inevitable. As the sun began to dip low, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Jim finally reined Clyde to a halt at their favorite spot, a high bluff overlooking the entire valley. This was their place. From here, you could see everything: the winding river, the patchwork of fields, and his small ranch nestled in the distance. They had stood here countless times, watching storms roll in and seasons change, but tonight it felt different. It felt like a goodbye. Dismounting, Jim leaned against Clyde's warm side, his arm draped over the horse's neck. He buried his face in the thick, dark mane, and the tears he'd been holding back finally came. He wasn't a man who cried easily, but the thought of his impending confinement, the shame, and the loss of everything he loved was too much to bear. "What am I going to do, Clyde?" he whispered, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. I messed everything up." The horse stood perfectly still, a silent, solid presence beside him. And then something incredible happened. Clyde turned his great head and gently nudged Jim's shoulder, a soft, deliberate push. He then rested his head against Jim's chest, letting out a long, low sigh that seemed to vibrate through Jim's entire body. It wasn't just an animal's reflex. It felt like a gesture of pure comfort, of understanding. In that moment, Jim felt a profound connection, a sense that his friend knew his pain and was trying to share the burden. As they stood there, silhouetted against the dying light, Jim noticed something glinting on the ground near a cluster of rocks. His curiosity piqued, he wiped his eyes and knelt to get a closer look. Brushing away some dirt, he uncovered a small, weathered leather pouch. It was old, the kind frontiersmen used to carry. His heart began to pound. With trembling fingers, he opened it. Inside, nestled in faded velvet, was a collection of gold nuggets. Not just a few small flakes, but several sizable, heavy pieces. It was a fortune, a relic from a bygone era, hidden away and forgotten for who knows how long. Stunned, Jim sat back on his heels, the weight of the gold heavy in his palm. He looked from the pouch to Clyde, who was still standing patiently beside him. Did you know this was here, boy? He asked in disbelief. Clyde just snorted softly, as if to say, of course. A flicker of hope ignited in Jim's chest, a feeling he thought he'd lost forever. This gold, it was enough. It was more than enough to pay back every cent he owed, to make restitution for his mistake. It could change everything. The next few days were a blur of frantic activity. Jim immediately contacted his lawyer, who was astonished by the discovery. The legal process was complex, but with the means to make full amends, his case was completely re-evaluated. His crime had stemmed from financial desperation, not malice, and his willingness and ability to pay everyone back showed a deep remorse and a desire to right his wrongs. The judge, seeing this, along with Jim's otherwise clean record, reconsidered the harsh sentence. Instead of prison, Jim was given a hefty fine which the gold easily covered and a long period of community service. He was a free man. When the final verdict came through, Jim rushed back to the ranch. He didn't go to the house. He went straight to the stable. He threw his arms around Clyde's neck, overwhelmed with gratitude. "You did this," he whispered into the horse's ear. "You saved me, you big, wonderful oaf." Clyde simply nudged him again, that same gentle push, a gesture of unwavering friendship. From that day on, Jim's life was different. The experience had humbled him, but it also filled him with a renewed sense of purpose. He dedicated his community service to working with troubled youth at a local equine therapy center, sharing his story and his love for horses. He showed them how the bond with an animal could be a powerful force for healing and change. And every evening, just as the sun would begin to set, Jim would saddle up Clyde. They'd ride out to their bluff, no longer to say goodbye, but to watch the sunset in gratitude. Jim would lean against his friend's side, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing, and know that he had been given a second chance. It wasn't just a discovery of gold that saved him. It was the love and loyalty of a horse who led him there, reminding him that even in our darkest moments, hope can be found in the most unexpected of places. Thanks for watching, and if this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more.